Hi everyone, Azriel Knight here, and welcome to part 6 of Darkroom Nights 2021, a mini-series where I use different papers and enlargers and chemicals, all in order to create my very first limited edition box set of my favorite black and white photos of 2020. A quick announcement before I get started. I've been delaying production a couple of times. That's because I've been waiting for a shipment of chemicals to come in to really spice things up. Now, the bad news is that it hasn't come yet, and when I check the tracking, it says that it's just delayed and it's not even giving me a date now. It's now 4 days overdue, and it's incredibly frustrating because I paid express shipping. The good news is that when the shipment finally arrives, I'll just do a dedicated episode to the things that I ordered. With that being said, I still think you're in for some interesting content. Let's get started. Today should go fairly by the books. I'm using my main enlarger, the Bessler 23C Series 2. I'm using a really easy to mix developer, Ilford Multigrade. It's liquid, it's a 1:9 ratio. The only unknown I'm going to be working with is an expired paper. I'm going to be using Ilford Multigrade for RC Portfolio. I've never actually heard of it. That doesn't mean it's no longer in production. It's just one I've never heard of. What exactly portfolio means as opposed to matte, pearl, or glossy, I'm not sure, but I'm going to find out, I suppose. But first, let's take a look at today's negative. This right here is going to be the last 6x7 negative I'm working on this series. This photo was shot in Inglewood during my 2020 Inglewood project, and it was just after second lockdown ended. And this, if you can't tell, is a pole, a giant pole of sorts that people staple posters and other events to. And I think it has a really powerful statement by the mere fact that everything's been ripped off of it. I believe I'm going to call this photo To Be Announced. I figure that's a pretty clever title if I don't mind saying so myself. But this, when I saw it, it was incredibly eerie. It was really weird to see this empty pole basically saying that nothing is coming up until further notice. Yeah, so I am really eager to see what this portfolio paper can do. And I haven't printed this off yet, so I'm also curious to see how it looks. Now, if you remember a couple of episodes ago, I mentioned that I've been having issues with light leaks in my Pentax 6.7. It doesn't look like this negative has been affected. I think the issue is progressive, and this photo was shot in May, early on when I had the camera. So it became more of an issue later on during my Badlands trips and a fortnight of film. But here I think I'm okay. Okay, I did my fog test, and it passed with flying colors. Obviously, I'm happy to find that out. I also learned, too, why it's called portfolio. This is a really thick paper stock. It almost feels like plastic. It's very rigid. You could tell it's got some weight to it. I am really curious to see how it feels when I get it down to a 5x7. The next thing on my list is to get my negative into the carrier and then cut a bunch of these down to size. Now, if you remember, my limited edition is at about 9 prints right now, and I've got a good history with RC paper, so I'm probably only going to run 12 of these just to have a few extra, just in case something doesn't work out. I'm not going to run, say, 16 like I would if it was fiber-based paper. Okay, folks, I've done several strip tests, bringing myself closer to what I think would be my ideal image. Here's the first one. And as you can see, it blacked out pretty quick. I used a 3.5 contrast filter, and I did 2-second intervals. Very quickly, it dropped off. Didn't work out. In the second test strip, I closed down a stop on my aperture and I did 1 second intervals. I found here that the 3.5 contrast did not give me any detail in the sky, even when the exposure was proper. So I went down to a 0 contrast filter, and I was able to get some detail in the sky. And here I'm using 1 second intervals, and I open back up to, 2 stops from wide open instead of 3 stops from wide open. And the only issue I had here was this little piece of bench sticking out. It really bugged me. So what I've done since is I've cropped in a little bit more, staying at a 0 contrast filter, and I've fine-tuned my composition. I think I'm at a point now where I'm happy with it. The next test strip is going to be 2 second intervals at a 0 contrast filter without this annoying little piece of bench in the corner. Okay, folks, I put my nose to the grindstone. I ended up with a 6 second exposure with a contrast level 0, and I pumped out, I think, looks like 15 prints. It's a little bit more than I would have liked, but I ended up cutting up too many 5x7s. And the reason for that is because I thought I would end up doing more test strips. You want to cut up enough prints for the run, but also enough for your test strips, and it's hard to gauge. It's hard to guess how many guesses you're going to have, basically. I am very happy with the way this photo turned out. This is probably the first day since the start of the miniseries where everything just went super smooth, and that's part of the reason why it's such a short episode. So here's a scan of one of the prints. I have to say this is probably my favorite paper so far. I'm a big fan of RC, not only for its simplicity, though I have a newfound love for its simplicity ever since I've been doing more fiber-based prints. But it's just the nice, thick stock of the Multigrade 4 portfolio. I'll be honest, I didn't Google to see if this stuff was still available. I really hope it is, because it is a beautiful paper. Also, another piece of good news, I checked the tracking for my late package, and it should be waiting for me at the post office by the time I can film part 7, which means that I should be able to use at least one of the chemicals in the contents of my shipment, which is better than nothing. So stay tuned for part 7, it should be an interesting one. I'll definitely be using stuff that I've never used before. But yeah, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this short part. Nothing to report here, just another great day in the darkroom. If you like what I do around here, perhaps you'll consider joining me on Patreon. You'll get things like early access, free prints, and your name in the credits. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And until next time, stay classic.